Good evening and welcome to Carving It Up Live right here on Twitter, as well as the Carving It Up YouTube channel and the Grid Network YouTube channel. As always, I am Bryson Carver. We've got a fun Friday show to end the week. First week back from the 2-week vacation. Very excited. Again, it's been a lot of NFL talk. Training camp just started. We've already had a ton of training camp news, some being unfortunate, obviously, regarding Joe Burrow, who I will get to in the second segment. We actually got an update on Joe Burrow today. I'll get into him later in the show, and the whole... Listen, there's sometimes things that happen in life. We have plans, and then something unexpected happens, and you gotta pivot. You gotta make adjustments. I think Joe Burrow's in that same position in terms of his future in Cincinnati. I'll get to that in just a moment. I should say on my second segment of the show. Also looking forward to getting into Dak Prescott, my man. Listen, I'm a Steelers fan through and through. It's the first show I'm wearing a Steelers hat to start, so very excited about that. But Dak Prescott was talking about the whole interception. Obviously, that was something that I think was to a certain degree blown out of proportion, and then to a certain degree maybe was underplayed a little bit by Dak, by the media, by some within the Dallas Cowboys. I'll get to that as and why he's taking the exact right approach to this new 2023 season. By the way, Dak turns 30 tomorrow, so happy early birthday to Rain Dakota Prescott. Also, a theory that I've got. It's just a theory. I'm basing it off of facts, but it's a theory. It's not a conspiracy theory, but it's just a prediction about the NFL's ratings, and it's connected to something that you might not have thought it was going to be connected to at the end of today's show. Also, by the way, a massive problem I have with the NFL's top 100 players list. They've been doing it since 2011, where the players vote on the top 100 players in the NFL. And there was one that stuck out to me that made me want to just vomit when I saw it, because it was sickening. They just released their episode. I think it's on NFL Plus or whatever it is today. They just released the 50s players, the top 60 players in the NFL. So they'll do 50s tomorrow, I assume. So something that stuck out to me that just blew me away. I'll get to that later in today's show. But first, as I teased yesterday, there was a story revolving around the Denver Broncos, and more specifically the head coach Sean Payton about he's making noise, right? He's interviewed by Jarrett Bell of USA Today. Jarrett Bell is one of the most respected reporters in the NFL, and Sean Payton goes nuclear on former Broncos coach Nathaniel Hackett and the Broncos coaching staff as a whole. Here's the answer. It's a little long, but I'll read it out for you because it is scathing. And Sean Payton is the future Hall of Fame head coach. Here's what he said about Nathaniel Hackett's season with the Denver Broncos last year. And I quote, "It might have been one of the worst coaching jobs in the history of the NFL. There's 20 dirty hands for what was allowed, tolerated in the freaking training rooms, the meeting rooms, the offense. I don't know Hackett. A lot of people had dirt in their hands. It wasn't just Russell. He didn't just flip. He still has it. This BS that he hit a wall, shoot, they couldn't get a play in. They were 29th in the league in pre-snap penalties on both sides of the ball. It doesn't happen often where an NFL team or organization gets embarrassed, and that happened here. Part of it was their own fault relative to spending so much blanking time trying to win the offseason, the PR, the pomp and circumstance, marching people around and all this stuff. Everything I heard about last season, we are doing the opposite." And he's talking about Russell Wilson. He said, quote, "That wasn't his fault. That was the parents who allowed it. That's not an incrimination on him, but an incrimination on the head coach, the GM, the president, and everybody else who watched it all happen." Whoa. Sean Payton is pulling about the same amount of punches, so to speak, as he did during Bountygate and Brett Favre. I mean, my goodness, laying it all out there. Ripping Nathaniel Hackett and the Broncos coaching staff from 2022 to shreds. Obviously, as folks out there probably know, I was a big buyer into the Denver Broncos last season, so much I actually predicted them to hoist the Lombardi Trophy, and it's a prediction I still regret to this very day. But I'm starting to buy slower and slower more into the Broncos. But Sean Payton did something I did not like today. He took a question regarding his comments to the USA Today, and here's what he said.
I said this to the team in the meeting yesterday. We've had a great off season relative to that, and I've been preaching that message, and here I am, the veteran, stepping in it, and it was a learning experience for me. It was a mistake, obviously. I needed a little bit more filter. there's a pound of flesh for these guys, and as a coach, you stick up for them. And after a while, we're past that season last year, and I said what I said, and obviously I needed it a little bit more restraint, and I regret that. That being said, what I told the team is, if it can happen, and I think I'm pretty good relative to working with the media and pretty savvy, and I just had one of those moments. Jared's a good friend, real good at his job, and 2 lattes in the morning, first one I see, and 40 minutes later I'm regretting it. So it is what it is.
Supporting Russ was part of the motivation?
Yeah, listen, absolutely. And these guys, and I said it to them last night, you guys deserve the best teaching in the world. We're going to give it to you. They really do. They're the best players in the world, and they deserve a chance. And now it's not going to be easy. And yeah.
Okay, so Sean Payton walks back those comments. He went on to also talk about how sometimes he forgets that he's not wearing the Fox hat. Obviously, he worked at Fox Sports last year and did a fantastic job as an NFL analyst with their pregame show. And he said, sometimes I forget that I'm not wearing a Fox hat anymore. I'm wearing a Broncos hat. And obviously, he's the head coach of the Denver Broncos. I didn't like this. Not the statements he made yesterday, or the day before, rather, to the USA Today, Jarrett Bell. I didn't like the fact that he walked it back, because it felt like, to a certain degree, you had Robert Saleh of the New York Jets, the head coach, talking about how, sometimes you don't care what people say. And Robert Saleh says something to the effect of, you have haters when you've accomplished something along those lines. Like, if you don't have haters, you haven't accomplished anything. Because obviously Nathaniel Hackett is now the offensive coordinator for Aaron Rodgers and the New York Jets. And so Robert Saleh's taking up for his OCs, taking up for his coaching staff. And there's been a lot of pushback from the Jets, from Jets players. And you've had the media kind of going after Sean Payton. Here's the first reason I didn't like it. The Broncos and Jets play in week 6. If I'm not mistaken, week 6, the Jets go to Denver. I believe that's the CBS game on national television to take on the Denver Broncos. My bad, week 5. This story isn't going to just fade off in the ether. Maybe through training camp it will. Maybe we'll get to mid-August, there's preseason games, and we're talking about that. And hey, this Broncos relative to Denver. Hey, this starter maybe could make a difference. This rookie could make the team and all that. This story would kind of disappear. But trust me, when week 5 rolls around in Denver, Colorado, this story's coming back up. Now, fortunately for the Broncos, they're not going to New York to play the Jets. It's a home game on the West Coast. Jets go to their house. But I feel like for Sean Payton, this is kind of his first opportunity as the Broncos head coach to, as he said, talk about, hey, it's the reporter asked him, was some of this defending Russell Wilson? He said, absolutely. Stand on that. Stand on defending your quarterback. Stand on defending your team, saying, hey, you guys deserve. You guys are some of the best football players in the world. You deserve the best coaching. I don't know how I feel as a Broncos player today, hearing my coach say, yeah, I probably shouldn't have gone that far. Not in the sense of, oh, my coach just turned my back on me. Not to that extreme. But that, oh, wow, he's just sort of backed down. Once we get to a late game 2-minute situation, is our coach going to be hesitant? Now, that's not Sean Payton's record. We know he's, again, a future Hall of Fame head coach. He's one of the 3 or 4 best offensive coaches in the NFL. Really, the guy who sort of helped revitalize Drew Brees' career into what we know him to be now as himself, a future first ballot Hall of Fame quarterback. But I didn't love how he didn't stand on it. He sort of let the media, and I think more importantly, Robert Saleh and the Jets kind of bully him out of it. Because if we know anything about Sean Payton, even before his broadcast career at Fox, when the guy makes a comment, he stands on it. Certainly he did with the New Orleans Saints. And for him to back off now with the Denver Broncos, especially this early into training camp, when you are in the process of building a culture, obviously you had OTAs, you had the entire offseason, get to know players. Maybe you had an offseason fishing trip, for all I know, with certain players on the team. This is an opportunity to build a culture, to set a standard that not necessarily will be the biggest talkers in the NFL, like the Cincinnati Bengals, for example, but When we make a statement, we'll go back it up because we are a good enough football team to do that. Our defense is top 5 in the NFL by just about every metric. Russell Wilson, we expect him to bounce back, getting much better coaching this year. They've got good weapons, an improved offensive line. Yes, it's a tough division, but given the coaching staff, given the roster, Denver's absolutely good enough to be one of the 7 best teams and therefore a playoff team in the AFC. I just didn't love how Sean Payton just backed away. This was kind of his first opportunity to make a statement. I should say, in addition onto the statement he already made, and he sort of backed off. I don't know if he talked to ownership, the general manager, basically saying, hey, walk this back. We don't want this being a distraction. I'm sorry, it's training camp. Would it have been that big of a distraction? Maybe if this has happened in week 3, I'd feel differently. If this was week 3 and 2 weeks out of the Jets game, he's talking about Nathaniel Hackett and, man, we're doing a much better job than last year's staff did. That's a little different. But training camp, it's late July. We got the rest this month. We got all next month. We got the season. We've got 2.5 months before they even face the Jets. This story will regardless of what Sean Payton says now up until that point, this story is going to resurface the week of that Jets game. And so I don't know if I love, regardless, it's going to be bulletin board material for the Jets. Robert Saleh's bringing this back out. Aaron Rodgers is going to want to avenge his buddy and his OC, Nat Hackett. I don't know. I didn't love how the apology kind of came off for Sean Payton. Maybe it was just a way to temper it down. I don't know. Sean Payton's as media savvy as anybody, but I didn't like how he just kind of backed away from it. Got a comment here from a Jets fan, Mr. John Rivera of the Fam Perspective podcast. He says, let's go Jets. Well, listen, John is as loyal Jets fan as you'll ever meet. He as well as, like my guy Alfred, shout out to Alfred and all Jets Nation, man. They've been through a lot. So I talked about them on Monday and I talked about them yesterday. And by the way, Jets are in the news again today. Maybe they get Dalvin Cook. That pay cut from Aaron Rodgers may pay dividends to a certain degree. I don't know. I would use it to go trade for an offensive lineman because you got the money to pay him. The question is, do they have the assets, to make it happen? But that's what I would do if I were the Jets, because that's really the only, I guess, cause for concern of that roster is the offensive line isn't as good as you would hope for it to be. Certainly Aaron Rodgers is used to some great offensive lines. Not great skill position players in Green Bay, but great offensive lines throughout his time in the NFC North. And it's not quite to that level with the New York Jets. But you assume potentially Nat Hackett puts together an offense that's maybe not a ton of deep shots. Aaron hasn't been one of the better deep throwing quarterbacks as his career has spanned later and later, certainly during the playoffs. And so maybe a kind of what you saw in Tampa Bay with Brady, like very, quick drop back that get the ball out of your hands quickly kind of offense. Because remember Bruce Arians, not to get entirely into a Jets topic, but remember Bruce Arians talked about no risk it, no biscuit. That was a saying. And Tom Brady was taking more deep ball shots than he had probably in his entire time in New England combined. And the Bucs were fine. They were 7-5 at the bye, but Tom went to, who was the OC at the time? Oh my gosh, the quarterback. Oh my gosh, I'm blanking on his name. He almost got the job in Jacksonville. I don't know. He's not coming to my mind immediately, but the OC for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, he goes to him. He says, you know what? Let's change this offense a little bit. Let's make it look a little bit what it looked like in New England, which is efficient, accurate, get the ball to your hands quickly, that type of offense. So maybe. Let's see. Yeah, John Rivera says Cook will be a Jet. It sure sounds that way because Dalvin Cook went on Good Morning Football today. And thank you, John. He said Byron Leftwich. That's who it was. I'm like, former quarterback. I know he played for the Steelers. I should have known this because I remember he had a good game for Pittsburgh back in 2012 when he was the backup quarterback. So, yeah. It was a solid OC in Tampa Bay. But yeah, back to John's first comment. He says Cook will be a Jet. He went on Good Morning Football this morning, and I forgot what the question was. Something along the lines of, hey, are you going to be a New York Jet? And he says, yeah. Like, without saying yes, he said it sure looks that way. So, feels like we're just kind of waiting on the contract, see what happens, but we'll see. By the way, real quick NBA news. This just came in from Damian Lillard and his agent, Aaron Goodwin. So remember there was the report. I haven't talked about Dame in a while. I think I'm like everybody else. I just want this trade to get done with Miami. But Dame said, or there was that report that Dame and his agent basically told everybody. I remember talking about this on the show when the story broke, that call these other teams, say, don't even make an offer. Dame's not going to play for you. He only wants to go to Miami. And that to a certain degree has it. Austin Rivers talked about it, how that's not the greatest look for Dame, where it's like, you're not a free agent. Like this, you don't choose where you go. This isn't like LeBron in 2010 or KD in 2016 or Kawhi in 2019. This isn't one of those situations where the star decides where he goes. This is Portland's going to try and get the best offer for them, best opportunity for Dame to play for a championship contender, and they go off of that. But so it's not the greatest look for Dame. But here's a statement this is from the Miami Herald. This is, quote, Goodwin, who's Dame's agent. Quote, Goodwin and Lillard affirmed to us that Lillard would fully perform the services called for under his player contract in any trade scenario. The relevant teams provided descriptions of their communications with Goodwin that were mostly, though not entirely, consistent with Goodwin's statements to us. Okay, so I guess essentially what that's saying is that report that Dame only is going to play for Miami, he refuses to play for everybody else. I guess they're saying that's a bit exaggerated, but I'd be shocked if it's not Miami. It's not going to be the Clippers, who I read today are not putting together really serious offers for James Harden. Again, I don't know if James Harden really puts the Clippers that much closer to championship contention. That's another increasingly injury-prone player who doesn't play defense. You have to give up some assets to go get James. I don't know. And I suggested a three-team trade where James ends up on the Clippers, Dame ends up on the Sixers, and then Portland gets a bunch of prospects and good veterans from both of those teams. I think that could potentially make some sense. I don't know if the salary caps work at the contracts work, but we'll see. By the way, I just wanted to let y'all know the Boston Red Sox are playing the San Francisco Giants tonight, with an opportunity potentially this weekend. We'll see what happens with the Blue Jays, with the Astros. Blue Jays playing the Angels. Angels playing good baseball. Maybe those Boston Red Sox have a chance to get officially into those wild card spots. Again, it is July. We got a couple months left in the season, but Red Sox are playing pretty good baseball. Matter of fact, better baseball than anybody in the sport right now. So my man Bloom's doing a good job, and I'm looking forward to that trade deadline on Tuesday. It's going to be fun. Okay, what was not fun is if you were a Cincinnati Bengals fan for about an hour and a half yesterday, and I talked about it briefly to start the show, the breaking news that Joe Burrow had injured his calf in practice. We had showed the video. Again, last time, here's the injury. So Joe's dropping back here. He's looking. He's going to roll out to his right. Non-contact injury. He's hopping on his left leg. His right calf is injured. You see, he goes down and he immediately grabs the calf. Now, obviously, initially I was worried, like, oh crap, could this be Achilles? But the good news is he clearly grabs the calf. A, B, if you watch the play again, he rolls out to his right, and when the injury occurs, when he starts limping on one leg, he doesn't look behind him. Like, that is almost always a telltale sign that when someone tears an Achilles or ruptures an Achilles, it almost feels like somebody kicked them. And so they look behind like, man, who kicked me? It's like, oh, shoot, I might have tore my Achilles. You never saw that from Burrow. And third and finally, and most importantly, somebody not just on the field, but somebody knows Joe Burrow as well as anybody on the planet, Jamar Chase, said that Joe, when he was being carted off, kind of gave him the nod saying, we're good, everything's all right. And a report came in today from Adam Schefter, not that long ago, saying that Joe Burrow this came in a couple hours ago, that Zach Taylor, head coach of the Bengals, told reporters that he expects Joe Burrow to be sidelined, quote, several weeks due to his calf injury. So we don't know if he's going to be ready for week 1 against Cleveland, whatever the case may be. Obviously, this goes without saying, if he were done for the season, the Bengals are not a playoff team. It's a good roster. If you don't have Burrow, nothing works. I was thinking about this whole situation, especially in the context of the fact that we've had 3 quarterbacks get a big contract this offseason. Lamar Jackson, actually Jalen Hurts before. Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson, and just a few days ago, Justin Herbert, who was obviously in Joe Burrow's draft class and has been highly successful, although not as successful as Burrow. And Joe has been talking recently about how he wants to get a contract done that works for him and that works for the team. He wants everybody to, again, to use an old Jerry Jones phrase, everybody to get a piece of the pie. Jamar Chase is going to get paid soon. T. Higgins is going to get paid really soon. He was drafted in the same class as Joe Burrow in the second round in 2020. Do they keep Tyler Boyd? Are they able to keep some of their good defensive players? I saw they sign Hendrickson to a 1-year extension. Sam Hubbard, some of their good corners, offensive linemen. Are they able to keep these guys in-house? And Joe's like, hey, I want to keep this together while still getting paid. And there's been a lot of speculation about, hey, will Joe Burrow pull a Tom Brady? Remember Tom Brady for 20 years in New England took pay cut after pay cut after pay cut so they could bring in players. It wasn't until, and there were a number of reasons Tom left New England after the 2019 season, but I said on my show, I think a big reason he left was he took all these pay cuts so that they could get better players. But when nobody was going to New England, they didn't go after big free agents. They didn't retain some of their star players. They let them go elsewhere where they got paid handsomely. He's like, okay, why am I taking pay cuts if you're not using the money I would have made to get better players or to keep our already good ones? And that frustrated Tom. Tampa, that won the issue there. They paid their guys. They paid Tom pretty well. But there was speculation, hey, Bengals got a lot of talent. Maybe bring some guys in the future. They just brought in Orlando Brown, highly talented left tackle from the Chiefs. I think Kansas City made a big mistake in letting him walk. But you look at Cincinnati, you look at how talented that roster is, offense, defense, and even special teams. You say maybe Joe Burrow takes a pay cut. And then this happens. I liken it to, in a lesser sense, you've got a situation where I've been to Disney many times, Disney World in Orlando. Listen, there's three topics I'm genuinely obsessed in: sports, politics, and Disney World. Love all three. But it's like when you go to Disney for the first time, and it's chaotic, but you've got these big dreams. You're like, it's a magical place on earth. You see all these highlights in the commercials, and everybody, they're taking pictures with Mickey Mouse and all that. But then you go through those gates, and that heat hits you like a freaking sauna. That Florida heat's different, y'all, especially now this time of year. And there's crowds and crowds and crowds of people. There's not that much breathing room within the crowds. You got a plan to ride this ride at this time, but there's a scheduling conflict, and then it comes a rainstorm, and you got to adjust on the fly. You got to change your schedule, and there comes a point in time where you're like, you know what? Maybe this doesn't fit exactly what I thought it was going to be, but we're going to make the most out of it. It changes your viewpoint. This happens in life all the time. In great examples, maybe if a relative in the family passed away, do you decide to take the promotion elsewhere? Or not, or stay home to be with the family? I think Joe Burrow's in a situation kind of like that, where it's all about the pay cut, be the team first, keep the guys. But then this happens. Because remember, Joe Burrow did screw up his knee pretty bad in the middle of the 2020 season. Probably cost him Rookie of the Year because Joe Burrow was having a sensational rookie season before he got injured against Washington mid-year. He had the appendectomy last year. I believe he had an injury going into 2021 training camp. And now this. So Joe's body hasn't held up. It hasn't been bad. It hasn't been to the level of, say, like a Sam Bradford or somebody. But Joe's dealt with some injuries. Joe's dealt with some nagging stuff. Again, the appendectomy last year. Now the very scary situation with the calf. And I can imagine through these next several weeks, listen, Joe knows the offense. Joe doesn't need training camp. He knows the Bengals offense. He's got to report with the players. That's not going to be the issue. But I guarantee you sits back and looks, and he's like, okay, I know what I've accomplished. I've been to a Super Bowl, been to an AFC title game. I'm universally recognized as the second best quarterback in the sport and the best quarterback in the sport. I've beaten him 3 times. I've been as accomplished as any player in the league, absent winning an MVP or a Super Bowl. But I've had these scares. I've had these really close calls. Maybe I should probably go and get the money while I can. I think a very similar situation with Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott betting himself. Now, Dak is not the level of Joe Burrow. I'm a Dak fan. That goes without saying. Dak is not Joe Burrow. But Dak bet himself. Dak took the risk, and it almost cost him. Week 5, 2020, the ankle injury, misses the entire season. Cowboys struggle, and he gets the 4-year contract, $160 million that next offseason. But it's a risky bet. That's why Lamar Jackson, when he got hurt in December, and I said a few weeks after it was apparent that Lamar was probably, I should say milking the injury. That's too harsh, but extending his absence longer than we thought it probably should have been extended. I remember coming on the show saying, don't play another snap the rest of the season, Lamar. Let the Ravens struggle without you, and do not step back on that football field until you get a long-term deal. Lamar's locked up long-term. He's got his money. he's good. Now he can just focus on his body, his teammates, and winning football games. Same with Dak Prescott. Now, Joe is a much better quarterback than both of those guys are. But there comes a point in time where you have plans, you have expectations, you have, this is how it's going to be. I'm ready for whatever. And then hurricane hits, tornado hits, and it kind of changes your viewpoint, your expectations on life. I think you're seeing that. You could potentially see that with Joe Burrow. Over the next few weeks, he's not going to be on that field. He's going to be itching to get back out there, but he's also going to think about his long-term future from a health standpoint and from a compensation standpoint. So, listen, Joe's going to get paid. There's no question about it. He's spectacular. That goes without saying. But I can imagine he sits back and thinking, maybe I'm going to be a little bit harder of a negotiator once we get to the table when that time comes. So if I'm Joe Burrow, knowing the leverage I have, again, the Bengals, pre-Joe Burrow, had not won a playoff game since George Bush was president. Not that George Bush, the first George Bush in the early 90s. And you see what they've accomplished with Joe. I'm not stepping back onto that football field in Cincinnati or elsewhere until I've got that long-term contract as maybe not even the highest paid player in the league, but top 3. That's my mindset if I'm Joe. But we'll see what happens. That's my mindset. Sometimes you have plans, you have a way that you're going to approach things, and then you have something that kind of scares out of you. That could have been catastrophic what happened to Joe yesterday without a long-term deal. Now, probably would have gotten it eventually, but what if it was an Achilles? And so now that's screwed up leg first year, third year appendectomy, and then this calf scare. Had that, God forbid, been an Achilles, that's a whole season and a half that Joe Burrow has not played in his 4-year NFL career. Sometimes crisis changes things, changes your mindset at times. We'll see. Hope he gets every penny. I really do. John Rivera says, I think 6 to 8 weeks. That is, from what I've heard from reporters around the situation, it sounds like that, which obviously, if that's the case, he, of course, misses the very start of the season. And John also says, Joe going to get paid this year, I think, before the season. I'm not taking the field if I'm him without that long-term security. Have to get it. Listen, you can be as good as Joe Burrow, but folks, you never know. You never know. And could this calf thing be something that plagues him the whole season? Like, remember something too with Burrow. Not just the long-term deal. He's got to think about his body as well. It'd be different to a certain extent if he injured his calf in week 14. And the Bengals are right in the middle of the playoff hunt. Again, I think they play in the toughest division in the NFL. You got the Ravens, who I think are title contenders, my Steelers, who are absolutely contenders to make the playoffs, and the Browns, who are contenders to make the playoffs. That's a brutal division with some great defenses and really good quarterback play and excellent coaching. Like, they're going to be right in the thick of that mix. If Burrow's injury costs them, or could cost them, a first-round bye, or even the division itself, and you got to go on a road playoff run, does Burrow, assuming he has a long-term deal, of course, does he try and rush back? Probably. Again, I likened it to Kevin Durant last year, where KD came back too early because the circumstances, I guess, told KD, it's like, hey, it's game 5 of the finals. Like, we're down 3-1. We kind of need you to come back. And he looked great first quarter and unfortunately ruptured the Achilles second quarter and missed a year and a half of basketball. Could that also be going in Joe's mind? So given that this happened at the beginning of training camp, don't worry about getting that on that field until that calf is 100%. Remember, the Bengals did start 0-2 last season. Lost to Pittsburgh, lost to Dallas, and they came within basically a penalty of getting to a second straight Super Bowl. So, Joe, don't go back out there until A, that calf is 100%, and B, more importantly, until you got that long-term deal. John says he's going to get a deal like Pat. Team-friendly, but still the bag. Yeah, it's crazy. Mahomes is now, the 7th highest paid quarterback? Because Mahomes it was 10 years. So that in itself is team-friendly, because he doesn't hit at free agency for a decade plus, because he's still at the end of his rookie contract. But the $450 million that's $450 million. That's a lot of dough. So we got the bag, and the team gets him long-term. Like, that's as good of a deal as you could possibly hope for if you're a team with a superstar quarterback, especially a guy who's I think the fourth greatest quarterback all time already. So I could see that, John. Both sides win. Cincinnati gets him long term. Joe gets the bag. That's a great point. Something else, too. Speaking of quarterbacks who got paid. So I was looking, and we talk about Joe's going to get paid eventually, and then you'll have Trevor Lawrence the year after that, in all likelihood. But I was looking at the highest paid quarterbacks in the NFL, just in general. I was like, okay, where are we at? Where's Herbert at? Where's, now that he recently got his deal, and Jalen Hurts, Aaron Rodgers just took a pay cut. And I was looking at the list, and I said, oh, wait a minute. Tied for 9th with Matt Stafford and somehow Daniel Jones. Dak Prescott. I'm old enough to remember just 2 years ago when Dak got that contract and people lost their you-know-what. How could you possibly make Dak Prescott the highest paid? People were clutching their purses. You have no idea. And now he's the 9th highest paid quarterback. That's about where he's ranked. I've got him 8th, but that's about where, if you want to put him 9th, I'm not losing sleep over that. He's top 10, highest paid. Well, look at this list. He's the 9th highest paid quarterback. It kind of evens itself out. The market always eventually evens itself out with where these guys gets paid. Again, it's all about when they get paid. But Dak Prescott, the big story surrounding him a year ago was the interceptions. As we all know, not only did he lead the league in interceptions with 15, but he did so after missing 5 games. Week 2 through 6, he was out, didn't play. He had the thumb injury, came back. He obviously threw 1 pick in week 1 and then threw 14 in the ensuing weeks after that, the ensuing 11 weeks following the injury. But Dak was talking yesterday during Cowboys training, or after Cowboys practice, they were asking about the interceptions. Apparently he's thrown 2 this training camp. One of them, by the way, was tips. Just want that on record. But he was talking about that and how he promises lesser interceptions, but his aggressive mindset has not changed.
I'm not going to stop being aggressive. 10 or tipped, whatever you say it is. I am going to lessen my interception numbers. That is a guaranteed. But we're trying to gain chemistry here. We're trying to be aggressive. As I said, that's who our coach is, and so and that's who I am. That's the confidence I've gained in myself, and I've worked so hard to be able to have this confidence and be able to make the throws that I'm making.
So Dak says, hey, I promise the interceptions are coming down. Not throwing 15 this year. And you heard him allude to whether it's 10 or tipped, because Dak had a comment recently that was misquoted. He said, I'm not going to throw 10 interceptions this year. And it was reported Dak said, we're going to make sure there's not any tipped interceptions. And it was reported as 10. I can understand. I guess the 2 words sound pretty familiar. And so there was the whole, kerfuffle, I guess, and I guess kerfuffle is not the word to use, but confusion. And Dak was sort of losing to that in a comedic sense or a funny sense. I talked about it last year that did Dak Prescott have an interception problem in 2022? Absolutely. No question about it. You don't throw 15 without something going wrong and it be your fault. It just wasn't in the sense that a lot of folks were thinking about. How many of those interceptions out of those 15 do you think were either bad reads or, on the other side of the coin, drop passes by the receiver, miscommunication from the receiver, tipped passes, as Dak alluded to before? Numerous. Threw 1 interception against the Giants, where it was a miscommunication with the receiver. Same thing with the Bears pick, both Packers picks. But he also threw interceptions like against the Texans or against the Commanders, or his 2 picks, really second one more so, against the 49ers in the playoff game. But this whole notion that's been circulating, and I guess I don't know if it's because Dak's the Cowboys quarterback and that's what makes him polarizing. I don't know. I was looking at this. The most interceptions thrown by quarterbacks in the NFL since 2016. That's the year Dak came in. That's the year he started in place of Tony Romo. He's obviously been the Cowboys man since. I don't think there's any surprise. Jameis Winston is first place in that category, despite being a backup most of those years since 2016. He leads with 81. Matt Ryan has more picks than Dak. Kirk Cousins has more picks. Phillip Rivers, folks, retired 3 years ago. He has more picks than Dak since 2016, and so does Derek Carr. Andy Dalton was Dak's backup at one point. He has been a backup quarterback for many years or for many games in the NFL, rather, and Andy Dalton has more, and Matthew Stafford has played one more game than Dak, and he still has 6 more picks than Mr. Prescott. Jared Goff, and I've been here, and by the way, I've come around to Jared Goff. I kind of like him now. But Jared Goff is not as good as Dak Prescott. Now, Jared Goff has played 3 more games than Dak, has 5 more picks. Carson Wentz was a backup a lot of last year in Washington and missed most of the last half of the last quarter, I should say, of the 2017 season. He also has more picks than Dak. For the record, Baker Mayfield has played 25 less games than Dak, and he only has 1 fewer interception. Ben Roethlisberger retired 2 years ago, and he has 1 fewer interception. Dak Prescott in 19 less games, for that matter. That aside, so that doesn't even put Mahomes in the fray. He was drafted in 2017, didn't become the Chiefs' starting quarterback until 2018. Josh Allen was drafted in 2018 and had a rough rookie season. That doesn't even factor in those guys, at least since 2016. They weren't in the league from that span on. I love that Dak, because I heard that initial quote that was misquoted where Dak said, "I'm not going to throw 10 interceptions." And I saw that, I was like, I don't know if I love that. Like, yeah, you prefer your quarterback not to throw picks, but I don't think I have the graphic anymore. I don't, where it was a list of quarterbacks current quarterbacks that have had 10 interception seasons. And it's basically every quarterback in the league aside from Jalen Hurts. Like, all of them. Mahomes has, Stafford had 20 plus the year the Rams won the Super Bowl. Evidently didn't hurt them that bad in the playoffs. Kyler Murray has, and Tua has, and Matt Ryan, who again recently retired, and Josh Allen has had plenty of those. Derek Carr, Aaron Rodgers, plenty of guys have had double-digit interception seasons. So that wasn't my concern. It was the decision-making. It was the bad reads. It was something that was very uncharacteristic for Dak Prescott his first 6 years in the league. Turnovers wasn't, you heard the quote from Jerry Jones. Remember where he said turnovers aren't his DNA? He's kind of right. That wasn't, Dak threw 4 picks his rookie year. Like, that's not an issue of his. So I have no doubt that he's going to fix it, but also not losing that aggressiveness. Because the fact of the matter is, given how limited the Cowboys receiving core is, yeah, CeeDee Lamb's tremendous. Put him aside. Given the consistent inability to separate, but Michael Gallup, who's kind of a one-trick pony, is just a deep threat, and that's about it. Brandon Cooks, same thing, and add on to him, he can't stay healthy, and some guy named Jalen Tolbert. Dak's going to have to fit some balls into tight windows. By the way, I believe he was top 3 in the NFL a year ago in tight windows throws, so there you go. The Cowboys, as a receiving core, were dead last in yards of separation per play. So he's going to have to be aggressive by necessity. So I don't want to see Dak be timid or be like, I don't want to take that risk. I don't want to see that. Mahomes doesn't do that. Now, again, Mahomes is a different level, but Josh Allen doesn't do that, and Hurts increasingly hasn't done that. I've criticized Aaron Rodgers in the past. Like, bro, Aaron, take a risk from time to time. There's nothing wrong with, you're up 10, second quarter. Maybe try and fit that one ball into a tight window, midfield, 2nd and 5. If it gets picked, it gets picked. It is what, listen, crap happens. It's football. Dak mentioned, it wasn't in that clip, but Dak mentioned that press conference. Listen, man, it's football. Turnovers are going to happen. But you consider the fact that what Dak's dealing with from a receiving core standpoint, he's probably going to throw double-digit interceptions. That's not my concern. I'll say 10 or 11. 11 max. But as long as he maintains that aggressiveness, long as he fixes the issues he had regarding reads, that won't be a problem for Dak moving forward. So I saw that, and it's like, man, I almost feel like we've gotten to a point where because initially the expectations were big. I think starting year 2 for Dak, coming off of that excellent rookie season, and he had a disappointing year 2. I think it was probably the worst year of his career. Year 3, when he got a competent receiver in Amari Cooper midseason, took off, was one of the best quarterbacks in the league at that point, had a solid 2019, an amazing 2020 before the injury. He was putting up just Madden numbers, throwing for freaking like 400 or 500 yards a game. 2021, I think, was the best season of his career. Again, his passer rating from that span from 18 to 21 went up every single year. And then in 2022, Troy Aikman, I heard talk about the other day, like Dak actually had a pretty good season, but the interceptions kind of overshadow it. And I understand that. But fixing the bad read interceptions, but the dropped, through the hands of Noah Brown or Peyton Hendershot, like those are going to happen. Like you can't worry about those and worry about, hey, is the receiver going to catch it? And I know that's not how Dak's wired. Again, he's going to year 8. He's a veteran quarterback at this point. He's right at the edge of the top 10. Right, I've got him at 8th. Some may have him higher, some may have him lower, but that's about where I've got him. But this notion that Dak is just this turnover machine. Oh, watch out for the Dak interceptions in 2023. Don't buy into that. By the way, I do want to say this too, because like I announced on Monday when I announced my Pittsburgh Steelers is my new NFL team. Very, very excited about that. It's like the anticipation for the season for obvious reasons. It's football, but also it being first year as a Steelers fan, lifelong as a lifelong Steelers fan moving forward, certainly is very exciting. I'm hoping to at some point get a TJ Watt jersey, a hoodie. I don't have my terrible towel on me right now, but I got the terrible towel I showed off on Monday. But I also announced that it's Pittsburgh through and through. Like I'm rolling with the Steelers from here until the day I die. But also, I felt that it was kind of betrayal to a certain degree to just ditch Dak. Like it wouldn't feel enough to just root for him. Like, I hope Dak does well. No. Like still actively root for Dak the same way that I have the last 2 years. So sort of stick with that. The Dak hat will come out once again this season, whether y'all like it or not. I know the Can Fan guys, shout out to the Cowboys Can Fan guys. They love the Dak hat. They asked me where to get it. I think Dak's got a website where you can get those. So just reference that for them. But by the way, Carving It Up merch as well is available. If you check my Instagram, the link is there. But you can get a little Carving It Up merch. But yeah, but think about it this way: the way that I've supported Dak the last 2 seasons, that's not going to change this year. I'm just a Steelers fan first. And I actually checked too. I checked this. I went through and looked at the Steelers schedule and the Cowboys schedule. If I have it here. Okay. So the Steelers schedule and the Cowboys schedule, there's only 3 games, or 2 games rather. We'll see what happens with week 18. They never announce the times for those games because the times for those games are dependent on how big those games are. Obviously, it's all divisional matchups. But until week 18, the Steelers and Cowboys schedule only conflict twice. So I'll be able to watch one and then the other. So that works great. That works great. Let's see, we got a comment here. Yeah, there you go. The Can Fan guys are in the building. Alex Johnson, crack him if you got him. There you go. Yeah, listen, I got to shout out the Can Fan guys. They're the best. Do awesome stuff. Can't wait for the season. At Can Fan, y'all got to have me on one of your shows. Got to have me on one of your shows sometime this season, okay? We'll do a home and home. I'll have, if I can have the whole Can Fan group, that'd be awesome. I know I had Adam on during Super Bowl week, which was a blast. We got to do a home and home this year, with the Carving Up in the Cowboys Can Fan podcast. That'll definitely be fun. But, God, football is so close. Where are we, 41 days away? Ooh. Let's go. That close. By the way, just got this real quick from 49ers training camp. And as y'all know, the 49ers were a finalist with the Steelers to be my new NFL team. I chose the Steelers. But real quick with the 49ers, there's been a lot of buzz about, hey, is Brock Purdy healthy? Which Brock Purdy did practice today. He says he feels good with obviously suffered the elbow injury in the NFC Championship game. But the sort of underreported story to a certain degree has been, hey, you got Brock Purdy, who's going to be your guy. John Lynch, Kyle Shanahan have been adamant. He's our guy. He's our starting quarterback. No questions asked. Sam Darnold, who's probably going to be a career backup at this point forward. He's our backup. And Trey Lance, the guy we gave up all those picks for, took with the 3rd pick in 2021. Yeah, he's the third string. He's barely played any regular season games. Yeah, he's our third string. Well, here's a report from David Lombardi, who covers the 49ers for The Athletic. He says, quote, Trey Lance has really struggled at practice on Friday. Lance only received 4 pass attempts, fewest among Brock Purdy and Sam Darnold. Out of those 4 attempts, he completed only 1 pass, and 2 of his 3 incompletions were gimmies. This according to this report from David Lombardi, who covers the San Francisco 49ers. I was so high on Trey Lance. I mean, I remember specifically saying, it's funny that this topic comes up because I'm about to get into one of these quarterbacks in this next segment. By the way, my NFL theory for the ratings this season at the end of the show after this upcoming segment. Definitely stay tuned for that about 10, 12 minutes from now. I went into that 2021 draft. I said, Trevor Lawrence will be the best quarterback. He is one of the greatest prospects we have ever seen. You think about Elway, you think about Payton, you think about Luck, some of the most talented. We're talking about prospects. Again, Mahomes wasn't as highly touted a prospect as those guys were. Like Trevor's in that class. He would have been, I know some talked about, he would have been a first-round pick out of college. He'd have been the first overall pick after his freshman year at Clemson. That's how great this kid is. About to talk about Trevor in just a second. I said, Trevor would be the best quarterback, but Lance would have the best career because Lance would be going to Shanahan and all those weapons and the culture and whatnot in San Francisco. Trevor's going to Jacksonville, who, aside from a quick run with Tom Coughlin in the 90s, have a pretty history. Now, they haven't been around that long. They were expansion team in the 90s, but not a whole lot of banners at Jacksonville Stadium. No question about it. San Francisco, completely different story. But, man, I was... As far as 2021 quarterbacks, I was right on the money with Trevor Lawrence. I loved him. He has not let me down. Zach Wilson, never bought into him. Kind of small. Sure, he had a big arm, but he wasn't that accurate, wasn't that mature. Zach's now Aaron Rodgers' backup in his 3rd year in the NFL. They gave up on him after 2 seasons, which is kind of unheard of. Who was the third? Trey Lance. Dead wrong on Trey Lance. Loved him. He's bombed. He's probably a career backup from here on out. Justin Fields was, I always say, if it's a 5-quarterback draft, there's 2 guys that dominate in the NFL, 2 guys that are bust, and then 1 guy you're like, he's fine. I mean, Justin Fields, I think I like him. And I said in the draft, I'm like, I think I like Justin Fields, but I don't know. It depends on the situation he goes to. And thus far, his record isn't great, albeit, Justin Herbert is 500. But he's shown the ability as a runner. We'll see if he improves as a passer. But it's kind of a wait and see with Justin Fields. Year 3, this is the prove it year, as Bill Parcells would say. And then the last guy drafted, I think I was more accurate on him than any quarterback in any draft. And that was Michael McCorkle-Jones out of the University of Alabama. And he has been a complete disaster. From people say, oh, what about his rookie season? Yeah, check his second half of his rookie season stats compared to the first half. And then go throughout last year. And in training camp, he's throwing picks and doing punishment push-ups. It's been better. It's been better for Mac Jones. Speaking of that first overall quarterback in that draft, though, Trevor Lawrence. The NFL, this is their, I guess, 13th year? Yeah, 13th year doing the top 100 players list. So for those of you who don't know, it used to be on the NFL Network. Now I think it's just on their streaming platform. Feels like everybody's a streaming platform these days. NFL Plus. And it's simply put where all NFL players put together a list of their top 100 players in the league. And they compile the list and they say, okay, they do the vote. Here's the top 100 players in the NFL. In the last few days, they've been putting out each episode on NFL Plus. I haven't watched them, but I have seen the list as they've come out day by day. I saw this, and I was quite perplexed, I must say. They have Trevor Lawrence as the 96th best player in professional football. Not to mention some of the guys they have above him, because they just announced the players in the 50s, so players 60 through 51. Justin Fields, who won 3 games last year. Tua Tagovailoa, who doesn't have a playoff win in his resume and can't stay healthy. Geno Smith, who is a career backup and had 1 great season, and all of a sudden we put him above Trevor Lawrence. Lamar Jackson. You guys know I love Lamar Jackson, but he's not the athlete. He doesn't have the build as you would hope from a quarterback that Trevor Lawrence has. He certainly doesn't have the arm that Trevor Lawrence has, not as accurate. And Trevor Lawrence has just as many playoff wins, being fair, as Lamar does. Jared Goff, who, while Jared had a good season last year, one of the best of his career, and I keep saying the Lions are going to be the NFC Championship game this year. You just watch. Jared Goff's team went 9-8 and missed the playoffs. My man, Dak Prescott. I love Dak. I will defend him until the cows come home. He is not as good as Trevor Lawrence. There is nothing, maybe leadership. I think Dak's maybe the best leader from the quarterback position in the NFL. On the field, the tangible stuff that you can see, there's nothing that he does better than Trevor Lawrence. Trevor's more accurate. Trevor's a bigger arm. Trevor moves better in the pocket. Trevor seems more comfortable in the pocket. Trevor has a better quarterback build. And finally, Aaron Rodgers. Now, you guys know I've been showering Aaron Rodgers with praise this week. I'm slowly but surely starting to buy into the Jets more and more and more in the AFC. But I've got this graphic available whenever I need it. Here you go. Aaron Rodgers in 2022, 19th in yards per game, 26th in picks, 16th in passer rating, 26th in QBR, last in 300-yard pass games. Trevor was significantly better than Aaron in all of those categories. Not to mention the quarterbacks they haven't ranked yet. Mahomes, Burrow, Allen, Hurts, and Herbert. If my math serves me correctly, that'd be 11 quarterbacks. 11 quarterbacks. I'm sorry, is that? No, 12 quarterbacks. My bad. That they would have over Trevor Lawrence. So I think Trevor Lawrence is not even, forget top 10 quarterback. They think he's right. It's been kind of average. You know, he's 13th in the NFL. And you would check Trevor Lawrence's stats from a year ago and be like, his pass rating is fine. His numbers are good. They don't blow you away. But as I did that segment yesterday that I debuted on Carving It Up, I'm going to be doing it every week from here on out, carving up the context. Those numbers lack the proper context. Because as we know, there's plenty of teams year after year that we see. They come into the fray and we're like, hey, this may be the shock team of X year, whatever year. In this case, 2022, a year ago. Oh, well, hey, the Chicago Bears. Yeah, look at them. They're off this hot start, and they might be some. And they got the first pick of the draft. They were nothing. Please, we always had that one team that dominates September. We're like, hang on, look out for them. And then once October hits, it's like, oh, they're not playing so well in November, December, and it's like, okay, can they tank these last 2 games for a high draft pick? Because coaches get film, you have injuries, all those things come into the mix. And think about this, the more film coaches got on Trevor Lawrence, the better he got. NFL's an 18-week season now. Shouldn't be that long, by the way. It's too long. Too dangerous for players. But it's an 18-week season. Midpoint is week 9. Week 9, first few days of November. So once you move in November, okay, the weather's starting to get colder. The playoff bracket starts to slowly begin to take shape. That's when you separate the pretenders from the contenders. And that's if you're Trevor Lawrence, how you separate yourself from being an okay quarterback to the 3rd best quarterback in football. Take a look at these numbers from week 9 for Trevor. He was 7-2 since week 9, completed basically 70% of his passes, threw for over 250 yards a game, touchdown to interception ratio 15-2, which is insane. Passer rating of 104.6 And Pro Football Focus from Week 9 gave him a grade of a 90, only behind, you guessed it, Patrick Mahomes and Joe Burrow. And yet the players feel, and I respect their opinion, they're the guys going out there and doing the hard work. They see Trevor Lawrence as the 13th best quarterback in football. I must say I'm lost. This is yet another opportunity for me to put it out there, and I don't do my NFL preseason predictions, or I shouldn't say preseason predictions, my overall season predictions. So standings, award winners, who wins the Super Bowl. I wait until opening day to do that. So 41 more days and I'll do that episode. All I will say about Jacksonville and about Trevor Lawrence is that the Jags are a Super Bowl contender this year, even in the loaded AFC, and Trevor Lawrence is an MVP candidate in 2023. He played as good as any quarterback in the National Football League. The second half of the season, again, Pro Football Focus, they're pretty good. Their job is to sit down and consume, not eat, consume film every day. And they said, you know what? Only guys we got above Trevor Lawrence from Week 9 on is the guy that won the MVP and the guy that got to the AFC Championship game. That's it. Trevor, you're better than all of them. You're better than Hurts, who finished second for MVP. You're better than Allen. We got you over Rodgers and Lamar and Brady last year. Shouldn't that mean something toward the player ranking? Again, and I talked about this when Trevor was given, was it an 81 overall in Madden? 81? That's like Geno Smith rating. And apparently, again, the players say that Geno Smith is a better quarterback than Trevor Lawrence. I'm looking forward to this season. This is, Bill Parcells has the old saying, I repeat it usually at this time every year, and sometimes midseason, that when you bring a young quarterback in, especially if he's a first-round pick, you bring him in and you say, okay, this is developmental year. You're going to have a lot of bumps and bruises. It's a lot. You got to learn the playbooks. You got to learn the NFL works, learn systems, all that. Like it's if you're great your rookie year, then God bless you, because that's hard to do. But year two, once you get to year two, it's like, okay, we need to start seeing a drastic improvement. That's what, by the way, I think you're going to see from Kenny Pickett in Pittsburgh. I honest to God believe that. I'm going to do a segment on that in the future. Stay tuned for that. By year three, if we're not 100% certain if you're the guy or not, we move on. That's the Bill Parcells rule of coaching quarterbacks, and I believe in it firmly. Trevor had a terrible rookie season. Could it, I'm just throwing this out there, could it possibly have something to do with the fact that he was a rookie who inherited the worst roster in the league and arguably the worst coach in NFL history, Urban Meyer, who did not even last his first season in the NFL? Could it have something to do with that? And then once he gets an improved roster, they draft well, bring in some free agents, Calvin Ridley, Evan Ingram, upgrade the offensive line, draft to the defense. By the way, Calvin Ridley coming back this season. And then more importantly, I think than that, coaching is more important in the NFL than any sport with respect to basketball and baseball. You bring in Doug Peterson, Super Bowl winning head coach. By the way, Super Bowl winning head coach with Nick Foles at quarterback, outdueling the greatest quarterback ever in Super Bowl 52. Couple him with a guy with the talent of Trevor. Upgraded roster. A little shaky start at first. And then he goes 7-2 down the stretch and plays as well as any quarterback in the National Football League. Again, passer rating in the 100s. 105 to be exact. 104.6, I believe, is the number. Over 250 yards a game. Completion percentage around 70%. And Pro Football Focus gave him a 90 grade, only below Mahomes and Burrow. So yes, as I put up my quarterback rankings, I did this after the season. Trevor Lawrence is the third best quarterback in the NFL. And we're about to find that out this season. I think it'll be pretty apparent pretty quickly. Again, for those of the podcast that are listening, here's the list from 1 to 10. Patrick Mahomes, obviously. Joe Burrow, obviously. Then Trevor Lawrence, yes. Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson, Aaron Rodgers, Dak Prescott, Justin Herbert, Derek Carr. Now, that list is obviously subject to change once the NFL season starts. That's the beauty of the NFL. That is what I love so much about sports. Doesn't matter what you did for me yesterday, man. What have you done for me lately, as Janet Jackson said, or sang, rather. What have you done for me lately? Trevor Lawrence is about to do a lot of great things in the future, very near future. And expect him from the jump to be in the race for the most valuable player. Very excited to watch the Jags. Very excited to see the most talented quarterback since Peyton Manning himself do what he does. The most talented prospect, I should say, since Peyton Manning in 1998 come in. Finishing the show here. So I don't believe, matter of fact, I strongly disbelieve in conspiracy theories. I think conspiracy theories are for people who have way too much time on their hands. And let's be honest, those people are usually kind of odd, kind of weird. I do believe, though, in basing just an idea. Again, not something that's actually serious that you're going to actually, carry out or something. We saw that result at in our nation's capital 2.5 years ago. But just given current events, not necessarily in politics, but current events going around in America right now. One of the big stories has been the strike in Hollywood, the writer's strike. There's no content being created right now. There's a battle between the writers, actors, and the executives, and it's gotten ugly to a certain extent. It doesn't look like it's going to be ending anytime soon. And for that reason, as this article on Axios is discussing, I want to give them credit where it's due. By the way, the article is called "Hollywood Strikes Upend Fall TV." Fall TV is going to look a little rough, as this article talks about. NBC, CBS, Fox, and the CW have all shaken up their fall lineups as Hollywood comes to a historic halt. And here's some of the bullet points they've got here. Again, this according to Axios. This is an article written last week. The new schedules are heavy on game shows, which nobody watches, reality television, nobody watches that either, shows from streaming platforms, and live sports. All of NBC's popular crime drama shows, from Dick Wolf, like Chicago PD and Law and Order, have been moved off of the network's fall schedule. Fox's fall schedule will feature WWE wrestling on Friday nights, while CBS and ABC will both turn to shows popular on streaming and cable. Paramount Network's Yellowstone will broadcast on CBS, while ABC will air Disney Plus's Ms. Marvel. And before I even read this article, I'd already had something I've thought about in my head. I'm like, hang on a minute. This strike, while it sucks for the writers, and I totally defend them, by the way, and the actors as well, while it totally sucks for them, the NFL, is smart people working those NFL offices, they're seeing this and thinking, oh, here we go. I'm here to tell you right now, folks, assuming this lockout continues for as long as it sure looks like it's going to, the 2023 NFL season will be the highest rated yet. All we got on fall TV, again, here's the networks: NBC, CBS, Fox. It also mentions ABC in this piece. All four networks broadcast the NFL. Fox and CBS do the daytime and midday games, and NBC does Sunday Night Football. ABC does the occasional Monday night game. By the way, I think this will also have major positive consequences for college football. This is as interesting a college football season we've had in some time, where Georgia's the defending champions, back-to-back defending champions, by the way. They're returning. They lost a bunch of their starters defensively, and their quarterback and their offensive coordinator. How does Kirby Smart rebound? My Vols coming back. I think we're going to be in the college football playoff. What does Bama do with the quarterback situation there? And A&M looking to bounce back, and Texas and Colorado with Prime. All of these stories in college football. Michigan with Jim Harbaugh and the 4-game suspension. A lot of stories in college football. I think it's going to benefit them as well. But as we all know, the NFL. It's why every election cycle, 2016, 2020, I didn't have a show around 2016. I did in 20. I just laughed at the whole, the NFL, it's dying because players are talking about politics and social justice. It's killing the ratings. No, elections kill ratings. Check the numbers. Check 2012. No politics, no social justice talk by players, and the ratings didn't. They still went down. Like that's how the game goes. It's gonna be the same in 2024. But 2023, again, if I've got the list here of the highest of the last few seasons, and here they are. So this is since 2011. Since the 2011 season, again, you got the little asterisk there next to 12, 16, and 20 that they were election years and that the ratings went down every single time due to an election, which, by the way, takes our minds away and our eyeballs away and our attentions away from live sports. Last season, 16.7 million viewers per game in the NFL. I'm going to say 20.5. I don't know if that'd be the highest rated season ever. Again, on this list, put this list back up real quick. The highest rated, by the way, for those that are listening, is 2011, 19.8 million. That's the highest that we've got. But I'm just telling you, due to this writer's strike, fall TV is pretty much dead. It's, as Axios talks about, game shows, which again, and I love Family Feud, by the way. Steve Harvey's the man. But nobody watches game shows. They don't. Reality TV, it's if you don't watch the Kardashians or there's another reality show that's popular right now, nobody really has the time to watch that stuff. Shows from streaming platforms, sure, but you can just go to streaming platforms to watch those shows. You don't need to watch on network TV. Just go to Hulu or Disney Plus or Paramount Plus or Amazon, HBO. And live sports. Sundays and Mondays are going to be freaking cash cows for the NFL from a TV rating standpoint. CBS and Fox for the early games, NBC for Sunday night, ABC on some games for Monday night, and obviously ESPN as well, who does all the Monday night games. Just putting this out there. It's just a theory. It's not conspiracy theory. This isn't trying to insinuate something that may or may not be in the mix. No. This is based on the evidence we have with fall TV being pretty much destroyed by the strike. The NFL will profit off of this more than it ever has. Putting out there, 2023 will be the NFL's highest rated season ever. You can book it. And with that, that is all the time we have for today's show. Appreciate you for stopping by. Be sure to catch Carving It Up Live on Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific time, right here on Twitter, as well as the Carving It Up YouTube channel and the Grid Network YouTube channel. And be sure to like, share, comment, and take 2 seconds out of your day and hit that big red subscribe button. Helps the channel grow exponentially. And be sure to go subscribe to the Grid Network. That is GRYD, the Grid Podcast Network, right here on YouTube, as well as any and everywhere you get your podcast, be it Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcast, any and everywhere you get your favorite podcasts. We certainly hope the Grid and our incredible lineup of great content creators is on your list of your favorite shows. Check us out on all podcasting platforms. Please subscribe to YouTube. Please subscribe as well to Carving It Up and follow me on all social media platforms as well. It is hot as whiz outside. It is late July, and listen, there's some stuff with the climate has something to do with that as well. But it's hot as crap outside. Enjoy the weather if it's enjoyable. Hope everybody has a great weekend. Please continue to stay safe out there. Please be sure to take care of your physical as well as your mental health, and please be sure to contact your local state representatives and senators to demand change for gun violence in America. It's going to be an interesting weekend. First weekend of training camp, where all 32 teams are involved at least. Is Dalvin Cook a Jet by Monday? A lot of potential storylines that we could have going into Monday's show. Should be fun. Definitely looking forward to it. Have a great weekend, y'all. Please stay safe out there. God bless y'all. Peace out. And happy birthday, Dak Prescott. 30. There you go. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube, and be sure to go click that big red subscribe button and check out the other clips and full shows from Carving It Up Live, as well as our other incredible content creators here on the Grid Network.